Hello and welcome to the InsurTech Canada podcast. My name is John Harvey. I am the founder of InsurTech Canada, the community, as well as the host of this podcast. Our guest today is Jane J. Wang. She is the founder and CEO of Optimity Health. It's Jane's second time on the podcast. In our follow-up conversation today, we talk about a bunch of things, but specifically for some teasers, we talk about the rollout of their premium version and all the things that came along with that. We unpack the challenges of being a mother and a founder all at the same time and how to juggle all of those multiple plates in the air. In addition to the transition from being a startup to a scale up and how to survive it. The Optimity Group and Jane have been fantastic supporters of the InsurTech Canada community. To learn more about Optimity, you can visit www.myoptimity.com. Enjoy the interview. I'd like to mention our very important sponsor, Trufla Technology. The InsurTech Canada community and podcast would not be possible without the support of our sponsors. Trufla Technology provides digital tools for brokers and agents to reach their clients. Their product suite includes lead management, custom mobile apps, digital scorecards, and more. They have offices in Calgary and Cairo. Their team of 100 plus continues to grow and innovate within the industry. They offer solutions to insurance brokers and agents around the world. To learn more about Trufla Technology, visit www.trufla.com.
What do you want to talk about today? Like, we could jam on a bunch of stuff, but
yeah, we can jam about a bunch of stuff. I know that you had some questions about premium, so we can totally talk about that.
Yeah.
And then
I'm messing with you. I've got the agenda. But if there was anything,
you do?
else,
okay.
If there's anything else on your mind that you wanted to riff on, we can just be spontaneous, right? So
I like the spontaneous part. So I have two kind of topics that I'm interested in.
Okay.
One is kind of related to premium. I kind of wanted to do a shout out to see what other people, like what other perks is important to people that they wanted us to follow in premium, because we're experimenting with premium bundles. It's not a static bundle, by the way. Our whole point is, a holistic package that resonates with the majority, like a large population of people for their physical health and financial wellness, whatever way that it means to them. So I'm open to taking any of those ideas and things like that.
I love that.
And then the other thing too, is I want to check out, like, where are people's communities these days? Like, what's going on with this? Because in the past, right, I belonged to, where were your sources of physical health accountability partners? Where were your sources of mental health support? And where were you going for financial advice?
I think some of it was lost for a lot of people. But I don't want to make blanket statements. I was listening to a podcast last night, and they were talking about US statistics and how X percent of the US population is obese, and then the rest is overweight. And it was something like 40% are overweight, and the rest, like a large number, like 20% is obese. And that was pre-pandemic. And the pandemic didn't make it better. It made it worse, actually, because people were eating more, drinking more, and moving less. And so I love that question, because I think a lot of it, like people like me, I can only refer to my own experience. I'm an extrovert. I get energy from being around people. I like group training. Like, I do martial arts because I can do that in a group and other people push me. I'll do CrossFit because I'm competitive. And when I see someone next to me doing something and they're like pushing me past my personal best, it's like when you're by yourself, you can kind of like let yourself slide or cut yourself some slack. But if you have that kind of thing in you, and everyone's different, but I know what definitely resonates with me. Like, without accountability from a community or people around me, I definitely let things slide in that aspect of my life, for sure. So, That's a great
And I think
question.
it's different how we access people because, or serve people, to be honest, because in the past, you can kind of, there's different micro communities, right? And like I played volleyball with a team, we're part of adult league. I also we had, founder breakfast or founder weekend things. So there's specific things that people are coming together for. Those things have to be rebuilt. Those things have to be restitched.
Big time. Even family relationships, right? I was talking like my wife about this last night. Just a lot of relationships, I think, have to be rebuilt because people have become accustomed to the virtual. Like one of my closest friends, who was my best man at my wedding, I hadn't seen him for 2 years. We just had lunch a few weeks ago, but we could have had lunch before that. We just got used to texting a lot, and so there's a lot of reestablishing and people finding their way. It's weird, like getting together, like having family get-togethers. It's like if that hasn't happened in a while, there's a bit of an awkwardness there. And you know what? I think it comes down to like when you get out of a habit as a human, it's hard. Like there needs to be some effort in the beginning to reestablish that, right? And in the insurtech space, like being a community organizer, we happened to launch this in the pandemic, so we hadn't done anything in person. But like I'm tired of the virtual, quite frankly. I'm looking forward to doing something to bring people together. Like when's the last time you went to a meetup? Like forget about the conferences. The big conferences are, sometimes you have to be there, you bring the booth, whatever. But have you been to a meetup recently or any sort of?
The last one I did was TechTO. The last one was TechTO, March 2020. It was for their women, right? Like March 8th, 2020, Women in Tech. We had just launched Consumer. That was a great meetup. And that went virtual, and I hope they come back to in person again, but that was a huge community. Yeah.
It's not the same connection either. And you and I are going to have lunch because we've only met virtually, right? We missed each other at ICT. So I'm looking forward to doing more of that stuff. So I like that. We can we can riff some more on that later in the conversation and, dive down the premium kind of rabbit hole and talk a little bit about that. But why don't we start out? There was some exciting news when you and I reconnected a few weeks back, or it might be a couple months back now. Optimity launched a premium version. Why don't we segue into that? Like start there and can you unpack that for us? Tell us what's that all about? What are you guys doing there?
Yeah. So Optimity has been a B2B business. So we started as a B2B business for corporate wellness, for employers, for insurance companies to offer it to their policyholders or plan members. So the members had always accessed it for free. And they either got a version of the premium version through their employer or insurance company, or 2 years ago, we launched Consumer, which is a stripped down version of what the premium was, right? So instead of connecting to 400 wearables, you can connect the top 5. So instead of getting all the rewards, you can get 3. But the point was still to give access to as many Canadians or Americans possible for that. And it had great success. People, right? Millions of people joined. And that's where we're like, oh, okay, like everyone wants something for physical health, mental health, and financial wellness. And we're putting them together in a very compelling way. But there was never a way for a consumer who, always got this app for free, either through access or through their employer, the paid version. But premium was the first one where we allow you as a consumer, if you're getting value from the stripped down version, from the basic version, which is also kind of quite comprehensive actually from the feedback that we get from the users. So if you wanted to upgrade that, if you wanted to get more of that type of thing, you can take your credit card and you can actually buy it for yourself. Right? Self-care is part of that self-care movement.
That's great. Now, packed into that, because you're offering something premium, people don't give up their credit cards easily, especially when, like, let's face it, I call it the dollar store generation. We live in this like society sometimes that wants the Cadillac quality, but when they want to pay the dollar store prices. And so obviously there's additional value in the premium version. Can you talk a bit about like what are some of the extra things that they would get? And like, are there some partnerships like supporting that? Maybe talk a bit about the value within the premium version.
Yeah. People definitely want bang for buck, right?
Yeah.
So we paid attention to that in premium as well. So we worked on premium with a few partners. So we had Walnut in there connecting everything. We had Headspace, ClassPass, Dashlane. We have other partners, two insurance partners that are in there providing the insurance products and really kind of putting it together, doing all the groundwork to create a bundle for kind of, right? So we put, I think it's over $37 of value into a $10, $9.99 subscription. So sub 10. And that is helpful because that's what people also want. And I think part of those bundling kind of went away in a long time ago. Like it used to be, hey, you can buy a whole bundle. Let's say from your telecommunication company, you can buy a whole bundle all together. But now people are buying like Netflix on their own. They're buying like Spotify on their own. They're buying all these things. And then all of a sudden you have all these compound costs. We're also putting the dynamic down of saying, hey, for one thing, you can get your physical exercise, you can get your classes, you can get your mental health meditation stuff, you can get your financial products and advice, and all that together within Optimity. You can access it from one subscription.
Very nice. Very nice. And Walnut, shout out to Walnut. They're a great Canadian startup as well. We had them on the podcast last year. So that's a great channel partner to have. So glad to hear. And it's always great to see two Canadian companies collaborating in that way, doing some cross promotion, et cetera. So what's the, how would you rate the success like on conversion rate, like getting people and like building the awareness? Have you seen a lot of people rushing to convert and upgrade to the premium version? And any challenges there?
We saw thousands of people already coming like through and going and checking it out and subscribing as well. But I think what we're seeing too is people want more or different, which is why I want to explore this second phase, what we're doing for premium, which is tell me what you want, right? Like we want more partners, other things to be including into the perks and bundles and packages. We are doing our annual consumer insights report, which has all this consumer data about, what's important to them. And part of it too is like what they want to see in premium. And we got tons of feedback from people wanting to say, hey, can I have everything from, having my medical records in here? Is there a way that, you guys have a partner to do that? Or, can I have other subscriptions in here? Maybe a meal kit or maybe something else. Like there's tons of different requests from people. So we're looking through the popular requests. And then now on the other side, we're also having conversations with the providers of those. Right? Think of the equivalents of, I guess not Headspace because we have like a bit of mental health, but other different services because they're one specific type of like daily meditation, but there's other types that people are looking for. Yeah. So I think those are interesting in offering choice. So we're going to be putting out more, first of all, research, and then 2 bundles, premium bundles to be able to, meet people where they are to serve.
So like why don't we wander down that rabbit hole a little bit then? So like, we talk about, and I love, this is a voice of the customer's approach as far as I'm concerned. Like don't just build it and say, what color do you want it in, white or black? Like, like you're trying to give the market what they want. And I admire that you guys have built this premium version, but you're asking for consumer insight now. And by the way, we'd be happy to help you even get the message out, just even around like surveying or augment some of the research that you're already doing. Has anything come up? Like you mentioned a couple of things, but I'm curious if anything like integrations have come up. So like when I think about my health tracking, I've been using this other app called Fitness Pal because I'm terrible with my nutrition.
My fitness.
I'm a train wreck on nutrition. So, but it can integrate with my spin bike at home, with my elliptical machine, and my Apple Health tracker. So that tracks my steps or whatever, right? So like now I can kind of get all that into one. Pretend I'm someone who doesn't know anything about Optimity. Is that something that's already included? Is that already in the base offering of Optimity, or is that something new, or is it something that you've heard as a customer need from your research?
Yeah, that's not available today in the consumer-facing premium, but it is available in enterprise premium. Depending. Okay. Yeah. So, for example, we integrate with Strava. We integrate with certain types of exercise equipment machines and things like that as part of enterprise. And I think that's also something that's interesting because if there's enough consumer demand, if there's enough subscribers of premium that want a specific integration, we're very happy. I mean, it's relatively easy for us to switch that on for premium. Yeah.
Do you see those things converging at some point? Like is there we can always edit this out, but is there a design principle or a reason why you kept those separate? Was it a particular enterprise customer that wanted that thing and you built it for them? Or it was too hard to deploy on the consumer side? Like, what's some of the rationale behind that, and when do you see that converging, if ever?
It was mostly commercial terms. So in enterprise, we had a consistent, I would say, sponsor for having those. So we always have the design principle of making the user experience sleek and simple and easy.
Yeah.
Be the hub as much as possible for the consumer. But there's always a cost constraint to doing things because those things are not free. An integration, a data pull usually costs us money as well. So on free consumer, you can't support it because I think within my Fitness Pal, they're under, if I'm not mistaken, Under Armour. So it was so the Under Armour itself may own some of these other exercise equipment machines, and they have so it's part of the same umbrella. True. So it makes total sense for them to cross-pollinate in there. For us, I think it's more of a business model thing. But now with premium, again with consumer premium, because people are now funding their own ease of use or their SaaS subscription, it allows us the ability to turn those on for them. Right. But I think, and here now is like, hey, what is most important, right? And then we'll try to put as much into that bundle as we can.
This is the challenge though. I'm kind of glad this came up organically because the Apples of the world have made the expectation of integration with anything that I buy in my house off of Amazon, almost table stakes for a consumer. But consumers don't necessarily appreciate if we put our startup founder hats on. Integrations cost money, right? And it's not just a matter of hey, here's an API.
Not just to build, but to
Exactly, right? Because there's fees, there's referral fees, there's connection fees.
Pay them,
There's developer fees. There's all kinds of that stuff that goes into. Here's a kind of a novice question. Would you consider Optimity to still be a startup, or what phase would you put yourself at as a company if you were to label?
I like to always have the startup mindset. Yeah. I think you can, call yourself a scale up. And I think even gigantic companies that are, companies like Uber or companies like Airbnb, they still call themselves a startup. They're way beyond a startup, right? They're full enterprise public companies. But they still call them startups. So I think it's good to retain the startup mindset and to always call yourself a startup because it also comes with a kind of a promise of agile and consumer first and that type of approach. I think technically, you could be a scale up, but
part of the reason for my question is when you're not a Fortune 500 company, there are some limitations, and you can't necessarily. You can be more nimble, but there's still going to be constraints. I would like to do, it's funny, this came up, a separate conversation, maybe with a panel of startups to talk about, like, at what point do you cross that boundary of no longer being a startup? Is it post Series C? Is it after you raise your first 10 million? Like, is it once you have board members and investors that have input? Is it, once you are an IPO company? Like, there's lots of, because I think there is an agile nature, obviously, to startups, less decision makers. Things can be done, experimentation happens more often, but there's often budget constraints, right? Startups can be scrappy, but they can also be very innovative because they really want to get shit done, right? And get their product into the market. The bigger you get, the more bureaucracy there is. So at what point does a company cease being a startup? Like, is it at a certain ARR? I don't know. So it's not a question I'm asking you to answer, right, unless you have some input on it. But I think that is a separate topic. I'd love to just kind of roundtable around to get some people's input. Did you have any thoughts on that, by the way? Like, you've been with Optimity. You are a co-founder, Jane.
Yeah. This is my second startup as
when do you feel like you guys stopped being a startup? And maybe is a better question. And
probably never.
Okay, so you still try to think like never. One, but you call yourself a scale up now. So like, when did that kind of point in time in your mind change? Where you're like, I'm not a scrappy startup anymore. Like No,
I think we're still scrappy. So I think that's the thing. I want to retain all these good habits that we have, like quick decision making, nimble. Really listening to users and customers, collaborative, scrappy. I think those are all great qualities to have. And you can totally have that at a scale up too. But the difference between a startup and a scale up in terms of operations is that you have an operation system. So we have, official processes that run that makes a team work. So things that work for you when everyone sat in the same room with 10 people, maybe even up to 20 people, because people you're within earshot, you're absorbing things through osmosis. It completely disappears when you are 50 people, right? So there's a really great talk that David Sachs does with Jason Calacanis, and I can link it to you here too, which he talks about like maybe you don't need a COO, you need a operating system. And that's actually what we have as well. And then there's a great book called Traction. It talks about the EOS, which is the Entrepreneur Operating System. Mm-hmm. You need a way of mobilizing a team that helps with communication and helps with people staying
connected,
really aligned to the mission. Beyond being in the same room. And especially now with remote work and all this stuff, like I think sometimes even a small startup, you need to have some scale ups operations practices to be able to stay aligned. So I think that's when if really kind of distinguishing the difference between how we ran as a company, that was a big difference. And that came in about 18 months ago, maybe 20 months ago.
Did you ever feel like you were, this is the term that comes to mind, selling out or being untrue to your startup identity when you started implementing, I call them SOPs, like standard operating procedures, the management system, all that, because I've from working with startups as an advisor and having worked for large companies in my past, the large companies are very bureaucratic and there's SOPs, written processes, et cetera, or at least are attempting to go in that direction. And my experience with a lot of startups is they want to be the antithesis of that. Like they're like, I don't want to be corporate. We're not corporate. We're this and we're creative and things change on a dime. But also there's a risk when you operate that way because so whose version of the truth is the correct one? The founder, and then everyone has to be within 6 feet of the founder to understand what the standard of the day is. Did you ever feel like, or did the team ever resist you in that transition when you had to kind of move away from just being like, hey, let's just talk to each other from our desks to no, we need formalized processes and has to be in the system and it has to be institutionalized. Did you guys struggle through that at all?
For sure. And I think it's a struggle for almost every single company that reaches a certain size. So it's a good problem to have. It's a problem of success. And I can break it down in two ways. I think the first one is if you are looking at having the SOPs, think about why you're having the SOPs. It's really about documenting and agreeing to the same truth, like source of truth.
Right.
And I think that that's actually worth its weight in gold, even if you're a startup. Like it's, a discussion is worth it after, like if you have a written document, even if it's like 4 lines, and you have action like to-dos after that. And I think that's just good habits those are startup scrappy habits, but then those could be the new SOPs as well. So I think that's kind of the documentation portion of it. And then the second one is a speed portion of it, because sometimes with SOPs or with these processes, what you have is the lengthening of time. And that's where founders like myself and my co-founders we're impatient. We're like, I don't understand why it takes 3 weeks for this. Like, right? Like it used to be, we meet today, right? Yeah. You can sleep on it. Tomorrow we make a decision and we go, right? Yeah. Like that was what it was. But why does it need to be 3 weeks long? So I think there's no reason why it needs to be that. And I know some great scale up companies, that are public, that are just excellent run operational companies, and they still maintain their speed, which is like, we meet on this day, the decision gets made within 24 hours or 48 hours. And like, I'm not going to give you 4 weeks before you have to make a decision. Yeah. And we're still going to stick to the decision. It's going to get documented. And maybe it's a 1-pager. So Jeff Bezos is very good about that. Or like Amazon stuff, like you put it on 2 pages.
Yes.
That's it, right? And I think that's really important, because I don't want a 15-page like consultant report. Maybe it's 100 pages or whatever it is. Like that's not going to be helpful for anybody.
No.
We're going to operate at the same speed with clear documentation and source of truth.
I like that. One source of truth, documentation, speed. Those are all really important things. I'm glad we went down that rabbit hole, because I think those are the types of things that should come out organically in these conversations as the community grows. So with this premium offer, we talked about traction, we talked about price, we talked about partnerships, value, et cetera. Is this Canada first, or are you going straight into the US? What's the rollout plan look like?
Yep, it's Canada first. It is Canada wide, so it's not a specific geography or anything like that. But we're finding that part of the growth that we have is, again, community based. So that's where I'm interested in to know where the communities are, because we talked about it before. Like people were accessing things through their employers, they were accessing things through their sports clubs that they know people at. All these like initial viral things, right? Like I remember downloading, I don't know where you found my health, my Fitness Pal, but it was a recommendation from my husband, right? He was like,
it was a friend. It was a friend.
To track stuff, right? So you're getting it from a friend, you're getting it from those things. Those relationships need to be rebuilt. Yeah. And some of them are not as frequent as they used to be pre-pandemic.
Yes.
So that was one of the things where actually when we have 1.1 million something Canadians that are on the platform, but like not everyone has even seen the offer, even though it's available. So I think part of it too is, how do we get the word out? How do we tap into communities? And that's where I think there's roles for professional associations. There's roles for other like connected communities. Yeah. And maybe there are specific perks that people want from there too, that is associated with those. Maybe if you were part of InsurTech Canada, you have a code and you get bonus.
You got my wheels turning. I wasn't even thinking about InsurTech Canada, but I was thinking about some other opportunities for you to plug into. We'd be happy to do that. And that's part of the reason why the platform exists. So that it actually kind of brings me back to something I wanted to touch on earlier. So is the goal to bring this more into the B2C market right now, because you really have a lot of a stronghold on B2B, or is that a false statement? Like, are you focusing on one versus the other right now?
I think the two are interconnected. So our success metric is number of members, which is basically the number of Canadians or Americans that we're supporting with the platform. And the way that we access them is through insurance companies, employers, professional associations, any of these things. So I actually think the access point hold quite a bit of power as well. And maybe with power is responsibility as well to bring more value to their people. And that's where I think that could be a good collaboration.
Right. Okay. And I think we can definitely put some more thought into the professional associations, communities, et cetera. Is there anything as far as that's like off limits for you guys? We've talked about, and this is just kind of like a random example. We talked about Canada, US so far. Is there plans to go into the UK, Europe, anything like that? Or is it just let's focus on getting this right in the North American market first, and then we'll think about world domination later?
Yeah, we execute globally. So we do, we have conversations, and we have projects in, like, for example, Japan. Okay. We've been engaged with some folks in Latin America to support them with our API solution. Okay. So it supports their app in their native thing, but it uses our behavior science loops and rewards and micro nudge systems. So same thing with Europe as well. People that really fully know the history of Optimity, like, knew that we had like a NIH project with Carrot before, prior to that. So, like, I think it's interesting. So for us, I think globally I think, it's technology, it scales really well. We're multilingual. Like, Canada is actually a great, I would say, almost breeding ground for this type of international technology, because you have to be built on multilingual. Like, that was a requisite, right? And then you also, because the regulatory things for data and health and all this stuff, like, we're pretty good. We have a lot of commonalities with both UK and US and other geographies, right? So, like, I think those are really nice things that we have as a foundation. But I think you have to think globally, still execute locally. At home, where, for me, it's very meaningful to see people in Canada or people that we, talk to, or, we're hiring. So we interview people and they're like, well, we've been on Optimity for like 3 years, or like, well, I'm a current user. Like, this is my favorite part. Like, it really means a lot to us. And every time we have a town hall at our team, which is actually now a weekly occurrence, we bring up user reviews and feedback, the good, bad, and ugly, and all this stuff. It's really awesome to see people saying, oh my God, I love this new feature. Oh, you guys have new gift cards on here. Like, I really love it. To the part where people saying, hey, I want more value in premium. And, instead of this, I want that. So all of this is welcome.
Just a sidebar here that was related to what you just said. Part of the reason I guess I was influenced by an earlier conversation I had today, talking about the global expansion, is Canada is a great plug for Canada, place to build an international company that's international ready, because we're such a diverse country. When you look at cultural differences between Americans and Canadians, and I love the US, this isn't digging on the US at all, but we're very strong, and, like, we are a bilingual country. Number one, we have 2 official languages, not like a second optional, but just like the cultural mosaic of Canada, and the diversity. And even just earlier today, when I was having a conversation about another program I'm involved in, and we were talking about having contact center support for a program, and the conversation was not around bilingual, it was around multilingual. For it to work in Canada, the 2 official languages is not even enough anymore. The expectation is that you're going to be able to handle any conversation or communication with the customer in the language of their choice. I think Canada is very well equipped to do that. So if you can execute that well in Canada, it really sets you up nicely to expand globally and to be successful, and to be able to scale quicker as well. So how's the juggling act going? Like, just, you're you're living proof that it's possible, right? You're a mom, you're expecting. How old's the first one? How old's number one?
Yeah, so he's 1 year and 4 months. So
Yeah.
16 months.
Yeah. So any advice for young mothers out there who are thinking, I can't be a startup founder. I've got this great idea, but I've got all this other stuff going on. Do you get this question a lot? Any advice for young mothers who are also career oriented that think it can't be done?
Oh, I can definitely share some of the things that worked very well for me.
Yeah.
I think asking for help has been something that I definitely learned through the years. And I think, it's about working with really amazing people and empowering them and collaborating with them and not doing everything yourself. So it really takes a village. I think my success is really because my co-founders were very supportive, amazing men that totally understand and support what we're doing, and fully, are amazing executors in their own right and leaders. And then on my side at home, my husband is super supportive. And then also at the same time, like processes, I had other moms and mompreneurs that sent me materials and spreadsheet, everything from, what's a good screening process for nannies,
Wow.
it's right. Like, first of all, it's totally okay to have help at home, right? Because I grew up with my parents not having, like, we didn't have at-home support or whatever, but they're also not doing something that's so like time intensive and managing a team the way that I am. So being okay with that and kind of upgrading my own operating system and the way that I'm running to do that, I think is really okay. And then also being okay with not caring, not giving a crap about what people, like how other people are running things. Maybe there's I have friends who are amazing executives or stay-at-home moms. And their lives, right? Like
that doesn't have to define how you live your life, right? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And they're different and they're beautiful people and they have other things that work well for them, but it works because that's the context that they're in and that's what they want to do. And then there's some realities of time and responsibilities that you have. So being okay with that and surrounding yourself with other people that are similar. So if you are a mom or someone with that want a family, that also is a startup founder, I would say your best resources for running yourself and your company is other people that are exactly like you. Do not compare yourself to moms with careers or stay-at-home moms or other things like that, because that's not you. You're a founder and there's specific responsibilities and hours and things that you need to do as a founder, and other female founders out there or even male founders will be able to share their practical experiences with you.
It's hard, right? Not to compare yourself to others all the time, right? I think we all fall into that trap. And I know from speaking to other, career-oriented women in my life, talking about the mom guilt that they carry around or comparing themselves to other people who are superstars in different areas. But you really have to find your own path. And I just love hearing about people's personal experience and how you made it work. So I thought that was a good opportunity to just talk about that. So we covered the premium launch. We talked all about, the various stages and the things that you're at, that you're dealing with, that you're struggling with, and that you're succeeding in with Optimity. Any closing thoughts? We talked about reestablishing communities, and we talked about what's important to people. What other features do they want to see? Were there any closing thoughts or things you wanted to leave with people to ponder on or to follow up on or to reach out to you on as an extension of this conversation?
Yeah, for sure. I think the first one would be a call to action to
Love it.
be involved in the community, in our community, right? So be it maybe the simplest one is, hey, join Optimity as a free community member. Do that for sure. That's like a no-brainer. And then I think part of it too is that we're looking for great people. So reach out to me directly on LinkedIn or to any one of our teams, our growing team. We are looking for people that are also community minded to run different types of, I would say, like empowering initiatives that we're thinking about.
Right.
And then also partners, right? Like we were talking about professional associations or any of these managers of communities. If you're tapped into a community, if you're part of it, I'd be very happy to hook you up with some bonus codes, some premium codes to get more value out to your community and to help us build more micro communities within our big community. The whole thing is about creating a movement. I really meant like as a movement. So I think this is, I think it's something that we can spend a lot of time in.
I like the movement mindset because it's purpose driven and it's more than just a transaction at that point. As far as community support, you can count on InsurTech Canada. Anybody who is a follower of our community, and we're growing by the day, expect to see some sort of promo code on our website and on our social media pages, so you guys can get linked up with Optimity. We've got some partnership announcements that we're going to be making over the next couple of months as InsurTech Canada goes beyond Canada, and we kind of mingle in the international space. Big part of the purpose of the community is also to spotlight great Canadian talent, great Canadian startups and founders like Jane. So thanks for coming along for the ride, Jane. I really appreciate it. And this was another great chat. I look forward to the next one, and wish you great success on the launch of the premium version. So best way to find it, if someone wants to, because one of the calls to action was join us as a free community member first. So if I have an Android or an iPhone, I can get those in the App Store or the Google, I think it's Google Play Store. I'm an Apple guy. So available on both?
Okay. Both, available on both. Just look for Optimity.
Okay.
If you were looking for premium directly, you can go to myoptimity.com/premium, which brings you to premium directly. Or if you just download Optimity, there's a way to upgrade into premium.
Fantastic. So we're not matching shirts today. So we know it was a complete and utter coincidence, but we are twins forever. So thanks again, Twin, for the great chat today. Looking forward to seeing you again soon.
Absolutely loved it.
Awesome.